interesting report from Windows Central this week suggesting, I mean, they're talking about a couple of topics here. First of all, Project Saluki, which is a Game Pass offering seemingly designed for China. That's going to be quite challenging, bearing in mind the regulatory restrictions there. But more interesting from our perspective is what Jez Corden believes is going to be some kind of disk to digital initiative. And I don't know how it would work. I guess it would sort of harken back to what Microsoft were attempting to do with Xbox One, which is to say that there's a license attached to the disc, and that you would be able to trade in your disc for a digital version of the game. John talked about, I mean, this kind of probably would be a good idea, bearing in mind the concepts that Helix is going to have a disk drive. Doesn't seem likely. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a really tricky one. Do we have any details on what they mean here?
No.
Because I mean, Sony talked about this before with the PSP back in the day. Remember the PSP Go, and that never came to fruition. Here, they're like, what do you do? Like, let's say you want to do this, right? You have your disc. Technically, I guess every disc should have some kind of ID, maybe. And if you were trying to install that disc on an internet-connected Xbox, it would be like, hey, you can't use it again. But like most of these games, going back, especially the older ones, you can install them offline still, right? So how would you, like, I feel like there's no way to actually block the disc. So like conceivably somebody could like convert these and then sell the disc or give it away, and it can essentially has created two copies. And then what if some, I guess you couldn't convert the disc a second time. You could convert it once to digitally. If you try to do it again, it would say we already did this ID and it's tied to this account. But conceivably this would allow the disc to still be usable elsewhere, especially if they get into backwards compatibility stuff, right? So like
possibly,
I really wonder how they would handle that. They can't just like destroy the disc. I mean, I guess they could. They could put a drive that once it converts the license, it like scratches the disc up or something. But they're not going to do that. I just. How do you solve this problem?
Well, I'm guessing it was solved in 2013 when they were going to roll it out for Xbox One. That would assume that all of this, disc-specific ID stuff was actually there, but never actually used.
Right.
But yes, you're quite right. I'm assuming it would have to be engaged via a new firmware that would actually recognize a converted disk. According to Jez Corden, it's codenamed Positron. Don't know if that's a reference to Lieutenant Commander Data's brain, but I hope so. Oliver, what do you think about this idea? I mean, it should be said, let's be completely clear about this, that Jez Corden is saying it could be some form of digital entitlement program. He's not saying this is going to happen.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you've got a library of physical games and suddenly your next-gen Xbox doesn't have a disk drive, that's slightly problematic, and there should be some way to address that.
Yeah, my sense based on the story is that it's not totally clear what this means because, I mean, disk to digital entitlement, I mean, in a broad sense, could mean a variety of things. It could mean something similar to that, I think, 2022 patent that we took a look at a while ago on DF Direct some years ago, where they had like an Xbox device that was connected to an Xbox Series device that was doing ongoing validation of that disk copy, right? So you could have like an external disk drive. I mean, very similar to what Sony does with their PlayStation 5 disk drive attachment, right? Or, I mean, just the standard disk drive in the PlayStation 5 2020 model, where basically you just have an ongoing validation of your license because you have the disk, physically spinning in a drive somewhere. You could also, I mean, you could involve surrendering the disk potentially, like physically surrendering the disk, not just creating a digital entitlement to a disk version of a game, but physically surrendering a disk. That's also another possibility. It could be a digital entitlement where you keep the disks, but like you mentioned, that creates all kinds of issues with internet connectivity and like, do you upgrade all Xbox consoles and then say, well, you need to do it like an internet check every time you play a disc game? Like there are all kinds of problems there potentially. And I really think like publishers would get in at any given point here and say no. So maybe it would just be for, Microsoft first-party titles. But yeah, I think at the moment it's really hard to say without more details on what this program could look like, if indeed it exists and if indeed it will ship as an actual program for next-generation Xbox Helix consoles. But I do think that the most viable version of this is probably just a hardware device that constantly validates the disk is present, like a disk drive attachment. That seems like the easiest way to go here. That seems like a fairly well-trodden path. But depending on how they go about this, I mean, if it's any kind of approach that actually takes a disk and makes it inoperable in some real sense across Xbox consoles, whether that's physically taking the disk away from you or destroying the disk entitlement to internet-connected Xbox consoles or something, I think that's a huge issue for game preservation, and I don't think John would be too fond of that for a variety of reasons, but it really depends on what route they go down, I would suspect.
Yeah. Interesting. I think the problem with doing an external disk drive is that not many people are making disk drives anymore.
Right.
It'd probably be quite expensive from that regard. Interesting. This comes with the context that the ratio between digital and physical games on the PlayStation consoles is just skewing more and more towards digital, to the point where the analyst Daniel Ahmad is talking about 85% being digital purchases in the latest quarter, the full year being 78%. It's not really what we want to see. I mean, actually, he does point out that even with that reduced share, that is still 70 million packaged games sold on disc for PlayStation consoles. John, that's not the ratio you'd like to see.
No, certainly.
I do kind of think that PlayStation 6 will still have a detachable disc drive there.
I hope so. I mean, yeah, that's not what you want to see, but I'd be curious to see just like how this data was figured out and how it varies per type of game, because there's certain types of games that make more sense than others in terms of whether you would buy a disc or not. And something else I really came to realize visiting the US some weeks ago, like if you just want to go out and buy a game on a disc at a shop, it's hard. It's become way more difficult. It sucks over there, dude. Like compared to like Europe and Japan, where they're like everywhere still. Like in the US, it's just like you're either buying it online or you're maybe going to one of the shops that still exists. But even then, the chances of them getting it's been reduced, and the whole thing has just been made exceptionally annoying in a way that isn't great. And then you couple that with the fact that the actual effort being put into most packaged games kind of sucks these days. Or it's just like a case with nothing in it except for like a disc, and it just I don't know, man. They've done a good job at making it unappealing, and they're like you really see what they're trying to do here. They're not going to pass the savings on to anyone. It's just they're just moving to digital, and that's unfortunately the reality. And yeah, I sure don't like it, but from my perspective, like I can't see myself ever wanting to spend full price on a console game digitally. It just doesn't make sense. Like you take away digital media or physical media, it's just like, for my taste, I mean, it does not apply to the average person. I'm not saying that, but for me, it's like, well, not just get it on PC. Like there's literally no reason for me to bother with consoles at all if there's no physical media. But again, like not everybody has that. That's my weird privileged perspective there to actually have a good gaming PC, but like I just wouldn't want to invest in consoles anymore at all.
Yeah, that we have this supporter question from Fully Fallible, who's also questioning the nature of this ratio in regards to the ever-growing quote-unquote stats that show physical games dying a slow death. Have we considered the simultaneous increase of the forever games that frequently dominate the charts? Fortnite, Roblox, Genshin Impact, etc., that are never released on physical. Yeah, I guess that also goes for pretty much any free-to-play game. You're not going to make a physical release for a free-to-play game, are you? I guess what I'm trying to say is, can we see the statistics adjusted for games that are even able to be purchased physically? Yes, digital downloads dwarf physical purchases, but don't the massive user bases of free digital-only games explain this away? Well, possibly. Anxiously Chronoed figured, hey DF crew, I love physical media, media. I'm quite worried about the ratio, but there's hope. People have been buying vinyls again for a couple of years, and now CDs are coming back too. Do you think something similar might happen to games? Cheers. Well, you look at something like limited run games that specialize in bringing digital only stuff to physical. Maybe that is the route forward, John. I don't know.
No, the reason is very simple. CDs, vinyls, that's an open format. Game consoles are not open. Right. If the developer or the creator of the console decides there will be no physical media, it's game over. It doesn't matter if there's a resurgence, you can't produce a media for it, right? Like, it's just not possible. So when that option goes away, and I expect at some point it will, that's the end. There can't be a resurgence, and that sucks.
Okay, fair enough. That's a pretty bleak way to end the segment.
I mean, what else can you do? There's no, anybody can make a CD player.
Yeah, fair enough.
But